Okay, so where's my pen? Let's see. Okay, so on this problem, this is 10.28. Let me see. All right. So we really need to look for your uh d over a. But before we look for your d over a, I would like you to look at this equation right here. Okay, so that's a squared minus 6ad plus 8d squared is equal to 0. Okay, so I'm not so sure if you have tried to factor something like this, but let's review a little bit on factoring anyway. Alright, so let's say something is easy, okay? X squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. This is what you call trinomial because you have 1, 2, 3 terms. Okay, and this is what you call your second, the coefficient of your second term, and this is your constant or your third term. Now the idea of factoring is really you just factor this into two binomials. You need to get the factor of your first term, which is x squared, so that's pretty much x and x. Okay, x times x is equal to x squared. Now for your second number on each of the factors, you need to look for two numbers such that when you multiply those two numbers, it's going to be equal to the third term or your constant. So when you look for two factors such that when you multiply it's negative 6, but at the same time when you add those two numbers, you will also end up having a positive 5. Okay, so this is product, this is sum. Okay, so let's think of two factors that when you multiply will give you negative 6. So let's say trial here, this is negative 2 and positive 3. That will give you negative 6. But um, when you add this, it will only give you 1, right? 3 plus negative 2, that's 1. So that's not gonna be okay. If you try 2 negative 3, that's negative 6 when you multiply, but when you add, it will only give you negative 1, so still not work. Another factor of 6, negative 6. So you can have um, 6 and negative 1. When you multiply negative 6, when you add, you have positive 5. So there we go, we have a winner here. So this is going to be 6, and that's negative 1. And when you add 6 and negative 1, you'll get 5. So therefore, these are two numbers that we're looking for. One is positive 6, and the other is negative 1. Okay? So now once you get these factors, you have two factors that has x, right? This factor right here and this factor right here. Each of these factors you can equate to 0 to find the value of x. So if I could write that back here, x plus 6, one factor, one inside parentheses, and the other one is x minus 1, another factor that's equal to 0. We want to find a value of x that will make, when you multiply this, will be 0. And to do that, if you have two factors, you just set each one to 0. X plus 6 equals 0, this first factor, and also in the second factor, x minus 1 equals 0. Now, what value of x will make the 0? So therefore, your x is just going to be equal to negative 6. Negative 6 plus 6, that makes it 0. And the other hand, x minus 1 equals 0. What value of x will make the 0? Therefore, your x is equal to 1. So this is the idea of solving an equation. You factor the original equation, and then set each factor to 0, and then solve for each factor. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Um, Now, on your problem here, you have, it's not gonna write. Plus. All right, so in your original equation, you have a squared minus 6ad plus 8d squared equals 0. So in this case, this is your first term and this is your third term. So we will get this thing ready. Two parentheses right here equals 0. Okay, so this will be a, so that's a and a. When you multiply a and a, that'll give you a squared. Now, we need to look for two factors again that when you multiply will give you 8d squared. All right, so pretty much that's d and d. Okay, both of your factors should have d, but also, and let's forget about this d for now because that's d squared anyway, so you know that they would both have d. Right, so we know that they have d. So just to do the shortcut thing here, really you wanted two factors such that when you multiply them you will get positive 8, but when you add it will give you negative 6 from your second term. Okay, so what are those numbers? Let's say 4, negative 4, and negative 2. When you multiply negative 4 times negative 2, it will give you positive 8. Also, when you add negative 4 and negative 2, it will give you negative 6. So these are your solutions right here. So now you say A minus 4D and then A minus 2D. Right, so now you have two factors. Well, let me rewrite that because I don't have space. All right, so you have um, A minus 4D as one factor, and the second factor is A minus 2D, all right, equals 0. So you have two factors. Now we set each factor to 0. A minus 4D is equal to 0, and the other one is A minus 2D is equal to 0. All right, add 4D on each side. Add 4D here. So now you have A equals, this one will cancel out, A equals 4D, right? Now remember, you needed D over A. So you already have a D in here, D over A. So you can just divide, I guess you can divide this by D and divide this one by D just to make it simpler. So now your A over D is equal to 4 or 4 over 1, right? That's the same thing. So therefore, if you want to do D, if you're looking for D over A, you can just take the reciprocal of this, D over A is equal to, then you also take the reciprocal of this, 1/4. So that's one answer coming from your first factor. Now on the second factor, you have A minus 2D is equal to 0. Add 2D on both sides. Add 2D here. So therefore, this one will cancel out. Your A is equal to 2D. Now, if you divide this one by D and divide this one by D, then you would just have A over D is equal to 2 or 2 over 1. I want to like to put 2 over 1 because what I don't need A over D. What I needed is D over A. So I flip that one back or take the reciprocal. And also you take the reciprocal on the other side. So therefore, these are your two answers, 1/2 and 1/4.